Welcome to Dividing Truth. I am your host or your hostess, Lexi Johnson. I am an international speaker and I am a licensed master coach in the financial services industry. You're listening to Dividing Truth here on Radio Wave for you. And we want you to share this broadcast out, share with your friends, let them know that they can tune in by going to www.radiowaveforyou. That's right, .com, www.radiowaveforyou.com. Listen, Dividing Truth is a weekly podcast. That's right. We come to you weekly with financial truths where we're dedicated to helping professional women and women entrepreneurs become financially free in uncertain times. Yes, these are times that are very uncertain in many ways, right? As of this recording, we are, in this process of COVID-19 and the process of states reopening, but also with the risk of the COVID-19 hitting again, as they're talking about, numbers increasing in certain places, or things of that nature. How are we going to go about reopening and all of that in a way that's safe for everyone? So it's uncertain, right? And it's uncertain in general because we're just living in a time where the 9 to 5, what it did for like my parents and grandparents isn't cutting it anymore, right? There used to be a time where you would go to high school, graduate, go to college, get your degree, find a great paying job, work that job for about 40, 45 years, and then retire, right? Because they had pensions and, things like that, where you didn't have to worry about being taken care of in retirement. Well, as I was coming into the workforce, and I'm part of Gen X, as I was coming into the workforce, companies were starting to do away with pensions, right? So now what you began to see was the 401k, which they did not really do a great job of explaining to people that the 401k is only a supplement, right? And that you should be doing some type of saving and investing outside of your job. And so what we have found is that people are not reaching financial freedom. 54% of people, once they retire, are dependent on government programs, or they're dependent on family. Another 35% or so, they still have to work. They cannot retire, right? And so who wants to live that life, right? Certainly not me. I want to get to a place where even if I don't really retire from what I'm doing, option, right? And wouldn't you want to have the option? So anyway, that's a whole nother conversation, right? Welcome to Dividing Truth. Today is just me, and our topic today, we're talking about bankruptcy, right? And I want to share with you because in one of the previous podcasts, I shared with you kind of an overview of my financial journey, if you will. Part of that journey for me was filing bankruptcy. And bankruptcy didn't work for me. And I'm going to tell you why. And bankruptcy may not work for you either. Okay. If there's an if behind there. And so that's what we're going to talk about. Why didn't it work for me? And why might it not work for you? And then we're going to talk about some things that you should know about bankruptcy, some things that you should consider, some things that you should do, right? As you're deciding whether or not to file bankruptcy, and some things you should do if you do decide to file bankruptcy, or you don't decide to file bankruptcy, right? So that's what I want to share with you on today. So again, let me remind you that you're listening to Dividing Truth with Lexi on radiowaveforyou.com. You can listen by going to radiowaveforyou.com, or you can go to our Facebook page. Just search Radio Wave for You Too. Radio Wave for You and the number 2. Those are numbers. Radio Wave 4, the letter U, and 2. And you will find our Facebook page where you can listen live to not just my podcast, but all of the other great podcasts and radio shows that are presented by Radio Wave. All right. And then I am also going to ask you, I'm going to run this down at the bottom. I'm going to ask you to subscribe if you love the show, especially if you are in a place of you are trying to get your financial life together. And I want you to subscribe to the show. I don't want you to just listen. I want you to subscribe to the show. And so that you can stay updated on the guests that we have coming up, the topics that are coming. And then I want you to do, there's two things, subscribe, and then I want you to join our Facebook group. Okay, so simply search Dividing Truth. It'll lead you to the Facebook group, Dividing Truth with Lexi. It'll lead you to a link for the Facebook group. Join the group because the podcast can only last so long, right? But we can continue the conversation in the Facebook group. All right, so let's get into this topic of filing bankruptcy, right? So, first of all, what is bankruptcy? Well, bankruptcy is a legal process. Okay, so it is legal. I know that sometimes, people kind of get their panties in a bunch about bankruptcy, particularly when we see people who are wealthy filing bankruptcy. We think that, oh gosh, that's just, wrong. They shouldn't be able to do it, especially if they file it, more than one time, right? So we're going to talk about all of that, but it is a legal process. In fact, not only is it legal, but it was also a biblical process. Yes, it was a biblical process as well. In the Bible, it's referred to as Jubilee. And every 7 years, the people, and this was for the Israelites, the people would be relieved of their debts, right? So it is legal, it is biblical. However, we don't want to abuse it, right? It's not something that we should abuse. It is there if needed. It is there certainly if it's something that you need to do, do it. Don't necessarily feel ashamed about it, because that's another thing too. It can come with it has come with a lot of stigma, right? Say, okay, it affects your credit report. It does. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But then there's this social stigma that comes along with it. But the social stigma, let me say this, the social stigma comes along with it depending upon what socioeconomic class you're in. Okay. Um, for some socioeconomic classes, it's not a big deal. Okay. If you need to do it, do it. But in a socioeconomic class where, let's just say, poverty exists, which is crazy because a lot of times this is where the people need it, there is this um, bad stigma that comes along with it. Very shameful. It's not, people don't talk about it, things of that nature, but it is what it is, right? So I think that, and this is almost in anything, I think that, we are the ones who say, oh, this is bad, oh, this is good. We are the more so the ones who kind of put that kind of label on things and attach those kinds of meanings to things. And as I have gotten older, and again, in a lot of areas of my life, there are some things that I'm just like, it is what it is. I'm not trying to make too much of an attachment one way or the other, right? Bankruptcy is one of those things. If you file it, I have no judgment for you. I filed it. If you don't file it, I have no judgment for you, right? It's just you do what's best for you in your situation. Now, are there some instances where I'll say, no, you shouldn't file, and this is why? Oh, absolutely. And we're going to talk about that, right? So I filed bankruptcy in 2005. And my husband at that time and we were in loads of debt, overwhelming debt. And the income that we had at the time, we were not able to keep up. We were not able to keep up. We had gotten behind in the house note. We had gotten behind car notes. We had gotten behind in a lot of things. And so, well, I'll say this, part of it was income and part of it was mismanagement. Okay. I'm not going to say on whose part, we'll just let that be. If you ever get the opportunity to hear me speak in person, you'll hear that story. But it was so for those two reasons, we sought out bankruptcy. And so we did a little bit, not too much, did a little bit of research. We talked to an attorney and then decided that that's what we would do. We would file bankruptcy. And so at the time, initially, I felt kind of horrible because, I'm the kind of person that, if I created this situation, then I'm the one that wants to clean it up. I'm the one that wants to make it right. And um, that was the case even with my debt, right? I did not feel like was deserving, if you will, of this clean slate in a way. I felt like I had created this and I should clean it up. But it was overwhelming. There was nothing at that time that I could do that would allow us to catch up, without losing out. And so we decided that we would file bankruptcy. And so after the initial, paperwork and filing and all of that, I got used to the idea. And, I even began to look upon it positively and say, okay, you know what? It is what it is. I've got to do this. I'm going to have a fresh start. I'm going to have a clean slate. And I was excited. I became excited about that over time. And once the everything was final, because you file, right? And then there's some months, in between there. There's a couple of court appointments, all kinds of legal things that need to take place. And then there is the discharge, right? So you finally get your discharge papers. It was like the weight of the world had been lifted off of my shoulders, because how many of you know, like, debt it's a weight, okay? Literally speaking, it is a weight. And why do I say literally? Because debt, even though it's not something that's like you're physically holding it, like bricks or something like that, it feels like that. It manifests physically. You begin to have all kinds of physical reactions to what's going on internally, what's going on emotionally with you, right? And so that debt had caused stress. It had caused arguments. It had caused, and I mean, the arguments were serious, okay? It had caused health issues. It had caused all kinds of challenges. I could not function, daily comfortably. Like, I put on a good face, right? I could show up to work. I could do my job, right? You would never know. A person who does not know me would never know that I was going through anything, right? But I was being eaten up in from the inside out, right? And so it was a weight, that I was carrying. So I was looking forward to not having that weight anymore. I was looking forward to finally getting that discharge paper, right, and starting over. And I remember saying, okay, this time, I'm going to do better with finances. I'm going to do better with this new opportunity. But here is where we messed up. Here's where we messed up. And here is where I am saying that bankruptcy may not be your answer either. Okay. This is where we messed up. Yes, we got a fresh start. We got a clean slate, right? But what we did not do was get educated about how money works. Okay. So, what do you think happened after we got the discharge papers? Right? What do you think happened? In those first few months, we do pretty good, trying to go out and, accumulate any, new debt or anything like that. But, after about a year or two, because bankruptcy is not like it was back in the day, even though it stays on your credit report for a long time, there are things now that you can do within a year of bankruptcy, 2 years of bankruptcy, maybe even less. There are things you can do. You can get credit cards. You can, get a house. You can get a car. You can do there. So there are opportunities to do that without waiting years upon years for having to do that again. So what do you think we did? Right? It was a fresh, clean slate, and we began to accumulate debt again. Now, accumulating debt again in and of itself wasn't necessarily the bad thing. It was we had not learned how to manage it. We had not learned how to have a healthy relationship with money, right? And so 3 years later, guess what? We are in an insurmountable amount of debt yet again. Yet again. Why? Because our habits had not changed. Our habits had not changed because we had not done anything to learn new habits. In fact, it never even crossed our minds that maybe I should learn, you know what I'm saying? Maybe I should learn something different about managing money. Maybe it was the way that I was managing money that got me into that situation in the first place, or that got us into that situation in the first place. It never even crossed our mind, right? Because again, for most of us who grow up in a poverty mindset, and when I say poverty mindset, I'm not necessarily saying that we were in poverty, although that could be the case, right? But a poverty mindset is just basically having a lack of understanding, okay, as it relates to money that manifests physically, okay? So you can have that mindset. You don't even know you have it, right? Because really it's all you know. It's whatever you have been taught, whatever you have seen your parents do, or other adults around you do. And you have no idea, that what they're doing is right or wrong. It's just the way that you have been conditioned, right? So not only do you have that, then you have the way you've been conditioned by society, because society says if you want a house, get a mortgage. If you want a car, go finance it. It's all about payment plans. If you want something now, but you don't have the money, you have a credit card so that you can get it now, you can pay it later, right? And so our society has conditioned us that it's okay to have things now, but our society has not taught us, our parents, society, any other major institutions have not done a great job of teaching us, right, how to manage that. Because with financing, with credit cards, with buy now, pay later comes responsibility. And, it takes a level of knowledge. Now, is it rocket science? No, it's not rocket science, but we simply just don't know what we don't know, right? And so if you're considering filing bankruptcy, one of the things that you must do, okay? And I don't often say you must do this or you need to do this because I don't want to get into the place of telling people what to do. But in this instance, if you're considering filing bankruptcy, one of the things that you must do, okay, is become financially literate. That's one of the things that you must do. Seek out a financial coach, someone like myself. You can even reach out to me if you would like, and get that education that you need, because filing bankruptcy is not the answer. It's not the answer. Filing bankruptcy is a tool. Okay, it is something that's available to you that you can use, right? But if you don't know how to use that tool, or how to, once you have used that tool to get in the place where you want to be, how to function after that, it doesn't matter, right? It's like, I don't know, putting together the kitchen set that my daughter got, right? Comes with some instructions, it's a tool, you use some tools or whatever to put it together. But if she does not know how to play with that thing, right, or plays with it in the wrong way, it didn't help, right? So bankruptcy is like that. It is a tool, okay, that you can use to help you, but it's not the end. It is not the end, right? You must have an understanding of how money works. You must have an understanding of how money works if bankruptcy is going to work for you. And so many times, this is what, kind of just it breaks my heart, if you will, because so many times people will reach out to me, say they want to do better in their finances, but then they say, okay, I've decided to file bankruptcy. I'm going to put, learning about money on hold. Okay. So I'll come back, let's see, when all of this is over. And I'm just like, that's the wrong thing. Okay. That's the wrong thing, because what's going to happen is, because it's over, you will feel like you're good and you don't need that. You don't need, the service of someone to tell you how money works, because everything that you thought was a problem is gone. See, the debt is not the problem. The debt is not the problem, right? You are the problem. I was the problem. We were the problem, right? So, and the problem was the fact that we were uneducated about money. Okay. So if you are considering filing bankruptcy, it goes without saying that financial education has to come along with that, so that once you file bankruptcy, you don't end up in the same position yet again. This is why people end up having to file bankruptcy 2 times, 3 times, right? 4 times, because they haven't really addressed the actual problem. Okay. And so I'm saying to you that if you're not willing to address the actual problem, if you're not going to do that, then bankruptcy, do not file it. You might as well just live with the current debt that you have, right? Because all you're going to do is go out and do it again. So might as well keep what you have. Keep what you have. Okay. So you're listening to Dividing Truth with Lexi. Today, we're talking about bankruptcy. We're talking about why it didn't work for me and why it could possibly not work for you as well. And I've just explained that if you're just tuning in. Um, we are a radio show, really, that is giving you, or a podcast is giving you financial truths, right? To help you in these uncertain times. We want you to become financially free. We want you to think differently. We want you to master your money. And so Dividing Truth with Lexi is presented by Radio Wave. And WAVE stands for Welcoming All Voices Everywhere, right? Subscribe to the show. You can do that by going to www.radiowaveforyou.com, or you can also, well, there's 2 levels of subscription. I don't want to confuse anybody, but there's 2 levels of subscription. So you can simply go to the website, right? Get notified that the show is on. Or you can go to the site that's going to be showing here in just a second at the bottom of your screen. You can go there and subscribe. And actually there will allow you to get firsthand information on the guests that are coming, get stay ahead of the curve in terms of what's going on with the show, become part of the Facebook group where the conversation continues, right? Because the podcast can only last for so long. So what I want to do now is I want to get into a few things. I think I have about 10 or 11 things that I want to share with you. 2 things that you should consider before, during, after you file bankruptcy, right? If that's the way that you've decided that you're going to go. So the first thing is um, credit counseling. Okay, credit counseling can be an alternative to bankruptcy. So you may want to kind of check that out first and see if that's going to be a better fit for you as opposed to filing bankruptcy. Here's the thing: when you file bankruptcy, they're going to make you do it anyway. And the credit counseling that they give you, honestly, they will give you a list of vendors that you can go to get it done. There's a fee for it. Um, and it's some videos that you watch, and it's done. Do you really learn anything from it? You might pick up a nugget here or two, but you're not actively putting it to use. So no, so you don't. For me, it was just merely let me check this off and get it done because it was part of the bankruptcy process, right? So again, this is why I encourage you to whether you're going to file bankruptcy or not, to get a financial coach, okay, someone like myself who can coach you and help you so that even if you file bankruptcy, you don't end up in that situation again. Number two, you don't want to rack up any new debt, okay, or go on a spending spree. And some people might say, well, why would somebody do that? If they're getting ready to file bankruptcy, trust me, people have done the craziest things. And that's one of them because they feel like, oh, I'm getting ready to file bankruptcy. So let me just go, on this spending spree, max out the credit cards, go buy a house even, and just file bankruptcy, right? No, don't do it. You will get caught, okay? And that is considered fraud. And then they can reject your bankruptcy case. And now you're stuck with, the debt that you had going into the bankruptcy and the debt now that you've accumulated because you just thought it'll just all wash out in the bankruptcy. So don't do that. There is chapter 7 and chapter 13, right? 7 is a complete liquidation. 13 is where they put you on repayment plans. And, you need to choose which is best. Typically, the attorney will give you guidance and they will tell you if you're low income to no income. Typically, they're pointing you to chapter 7. If you still have a regular income and you do have the ability to pay it back, they are going to tell you you qualify for a chapter 13. Okay. So with a 7, everything is washed out. You could possibly lose your house, your car, things of that nature, right? In a chapter 13, you could keep those things. And those things can become part of the repayment plan. All right. Number 3, do not drain your retirement. Whatever you do not drain your retirement. People panic and they go pull out, their retirement funds to pay things off. Do not do that. Okay. Do not do that. Number 1, if you're going to file bankruptcy, the bankruptcy is going to take care of those things. Okay. And some people ask, well, or they may think that their retirement is going to be subjected to, they're going to take it in the bankruptcy. And most retirement funds are protected. So again, make sure to talk to an attorney and get a consult, okay, before you make quick moves and find out, one way or the other. But typically, your retirement funds are protected, right? So don't go and drain your retirement accounts. Number 4, understand that bankruptcy doesn't eliminate all debt. Your child support isn't going anywhere. Taxes, you still got to pay them. Student loans, you still have to pay that type of stuff. So that stuff is not going anywhere. Okay, it's not going anywhere. Let's talk about your secured debt. Secured debt is any debt that is backed by collateral, backed by property, backed by, house, car, whatever. Your secured creditors have the right, to retain that property, okay? Even in the bankruptcy process, they have the right to retain that property and use that property to clear the debt, okay? Your unsecured debt, those creditors cannot do that. So medical bills, credit cards, things like that, those things are not backed by your property or anything like that. So they do not have the right to do that. Number 6, each state has its own exemptions, bankruptcy exemptions, right? So for example, in Virginia, in fact, it's July 2020, so the exemptions in Virginia just went up. So now in the state of Virginia, you have a $25,000 exemption, right? For any personal or real property. That varies from state to state. So again, you want to consult with the attorney and learn what that is for your state and how that affects your bankruptcy filing, right? The bankruptcy exemptions can go up if you're older than 60. So again, you want to consult with attorney, right? Number seven, chapter seven, number seven, you guys don't have no idea what number I'm on. I didn't number it that way. But anyway, chapter seven bankruptcy is it lasts from about 4 to 6 months. So understand this is not an overnight process. Okay. There are a couple of court hearings, things have to be approved and all of that. So it is not overnight. Chapter 13 is even longer. That is like a 3 to 5 year process because that repayment plan, right? You're put on a repayment plan. And so it is not done until that repayment plan is done, right? Then you get your official discharge. You could file bankruptcy on your own, get the paperwork from the court and all that. You can do it on your own. Do I advise that? No, I don't, because there are some loopholes and some things that you may not understand, that the attorney may understand and can help, protect you in certain ways because they just have a better knowledge of the law. But if you must do it on your own because it is quite expensive, which is my next point, then do so. But if at all possible, hire someone. So it is expensive. There are fees that come along with that. There's the court filing fees, which are $300, a little over $300, whether you're doing a 7 or a 13. There are fees to reopen the case if you have to reopen it. There are fees to appeal. There are fees to pay for credit management. And then there is the cost of, just the bankruptcy process itself, especially if you're doing it through an attorney. And those fees can vary anywhere from, depending on the state, 900 to, depending on the state and the kind. Chapter 7, 900 to about 1,250. Chapter 13, that can cost you $2 to $3 grand. Okay, again, that's not including any filing fees or anything like that. Be honest. Be honest. Okay. Throughout this, again, if you're not honest about what assets you have, what debt you have, and all of that, it can backfire on you, right? The next point I want to make is that it's a public record. Everyone can have access to, they know you filed bankruptcy, they have access. They can know you filed bankruptcy, when you filed bankruptcy, who your creditors were, what your income was at the time, what your whole financial status was at the time. It is a public record, and it goes on your credit report, stays on your credit report anywhere from 7 to 10 years. Now, like I said, in these days, couple years, it is a couple of years now, you can begin doing things. It's not as bad as it used to be, where you just would shut out of things for years and years. But just know it does affect your credit report negatively, but you can bounce back within months. So hire or talk to or get a consult with someone who specializes in credit repair, and they can walk you through all of that. So don't let the fact that it will negatively impact your credit, don't let that be the deciding factor that you don't do it. But again, seek out someone in the credit repair so you can understand how it will affect you and what things you can do to help get your credit back up. How long will it be before you could get a home again, things of that nature, right? And what else do I want to say on that? I just want to say again, whether you're going to file bankruptcy or not, it is imperative that you understand, that you learn how money works. And listen, when you subscribe to our show using this link that is going to show up here at the bottom of your screen, you get an actual free guide, how money works guide, free. You get it free. So that can be a start, right? But then read that guide, right? Because that's the next thing. You get it, but you got to read it, or seek out a professional like myself who can help you, because sometimes you may be reading and you may not understand, even though this guide is well written, right? A fifth grader can understand it. You still may need to talk through some things. So that's our podcast for today. I want to thank you for tuning in. You've been watching Dividing Truth with Lexi Johnson, and you've been watching Radio Wave for You. Radio Wave for You.
Audio Jungle.